no one thought we had much of a chance to win this race, not the primary and certainly not the general election. In fact, Dave Kranz, the longtime political reporter for the Argus Leader, wrote this: Eastern labor leaders have tested the state's congressional primary for possible contributions, but have come away disillusioned by the two Democratic congressional candidates, and they left with a strong impression that Republican Dale Bell would win a seat going away. But there's one quality that sets Tim Johnson apart from any other person that I've ever known, and that is that he refuses to back down, ever. That's not to say that he doesn't have doubts. We all do, but like some of us, he doesn't let them stop him. And in 1986, his determination was rewarded when we won the primary, and then we won the general election by 18%, 59-41. So much for the Eastern labor leaders. However, after Tim won, Dave Kranz at the Argus was still not convinced that Tim would be successful. He said he was only going to be a one-term congressman, and but that didn't stop Tim. He didn't back down, and in fact, he went on to win his House race, re-election, 72% to 28%, the largest victory by a Democrat in South Dakota history. And when the Republicans pounded the Democrats in 1994, taking the House and the Senate, Senator Larry Pressler became the chairman of the very powerful Senate Commerce Committee. A lot of people told Tim that he was crazy to give up his safe House seat to run against the chairman. However, Tim said no. He didn't back down. Instead, he took Larry Pressler down. And Larry Pressler became the only chairman to lose his chairmanship in 12 years. And not only this, but it took place in one of the reddest of all red states in South Dakota. But there's another person that didn't back down, and that is Barb Johnson.
Yeah.
In the spring of 1996, Barb was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was soon clear that her prognosis was uncertain. I will forever remember the night in Tim's office when he told me that he wasn't sure that he could make the race, whether the right thing for him to do was to withdraw, which of course would have been perfectly understandable. He came back to work the next day, though, and told me that Barb had told him that she would be damned, that's the word that he gave me, but she would be the reason why Larry Pressler was returned to the United States Senate. Didn't back down, and the United States is a better place because of it. In late 2001, Congressman John Thune decided to challenge Tim for re-election, and we did a poll in which it showed that Tim was behind by 10%, which is sort of a sign you better get your resumes ready if you're looking to be employed afterwards, if you're an incumbent. It would have been very easy for Tim to have backed down, to have shifted and run for the open governor's seat, but he didn't back down and ran what many consider to be the most brilliant political race in the history of South Dakota. And then 2006 happened, and our world turned upside down. It was far from clear that Tim would survive his brain hemorrhage, and when it was clear that he would survive it, it wasn't clear how far his recovery would take him. One of the best days in my 28 years with Tim was in the spring of 2007, when Barb told me that it was okay to go ahead and raise money for Tim's re-election. It would have been so easy, just think about it, it would have been so easy for Tim to put out a press release and call it a career. Not a single person in America would have blamed him. But you know what? Tim Johnson didn't back down, Barb Johnson didn't back down, the Johnson family didn't back down, and no one in this room backed down, and he won. It's also important for us to remember our accomplishments. The projects bringing clean water to rural South Dakotans, the fact that Tim cast deciding votes in favor of the 1993 Clinton budget that revitalized the American economy, and for the Affordable Care Act, which is providing tens of millions of Americans health insurance that they didn't have before. And of course, his excellent work as chairman of the Banking Committee. And obviously, these things are just scratching the surface. But it's also important to remember that the many hundreds of staff who started their career with us, and the many hundreds of interns we've had as well. And for that matter, the marriages that have begun and the children that have been the result of their employment with us. It's fair to say that Tim Johnson created an environment that allowed all of us to learn, to grow, and to thrive. And speaking for myself, I don't think it's possible for me to be prouder of having worked with every single one of you. I'm not exaggerating when I say that I believe we've always had the best staff on Capitol Hill, and that is just the truth. And as these 28 great years draw to a close, it's easy for an event like this to have a sort of funereal quality to it. It is, after all, an important chapter in all of our lives. It represents most of our life's work, or some of us. But there are important challenges ahead for all of us. No one is done. Tim Johnson is not done. Barb Johnson isn't done. No one in this room is done. We will no longer do our work as a group, but we are strengthened by the years we've had together, as well as the bonds that bind us together, and will do so forever. I'm going to conclude by quoting one of Tim's colleagues, Ted Kennedy, who once said, "For all those whose cares have been our concern, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die." I'm going to miss every one of you. Thank you so much for being here.